Hi students, welcome to current affairs session. Basically from today onwards, I'm trying to have the discussion on few important topics from the newspaper, right? So this can be dealt as a part of a current affairs. Now, what is the important news that we have for today? There is nothing but the G7 proposal to expand to G11. As you already know, I have also put a question in the telegram and most of you have answered that. Very good, appreciated. Now, what is this proposal of G7 to expand to something called as a G11? Okay, what is the history behind this G7 and why it wanted to become a G11? Who is the key person behind that? That is all what we are going to discuss. Basically, you should understand that G7 is something that has come to existence in the year 1975. Okay, so in 1975 it has come to existence in the form of something called as a G6. Okay, with USA, UK, France, Italy, Germany, and Japan being part of that. Later on, immediately after 1 year, one more country has joined. There is nothing but Canada. What is the country? Canada. With Canada taking a role in that, it has become what G7. Now, as it was G7, one important country joined. That country is nothing but Russia. What is it country? Russia. Very, very important development. Now, Russia became part of this G7 in the year 1997, and now finally that G7 has converted into something called as a very, very important and very, very famous as something called as a G8. So, for a long period of time, it was continuing as a G8 only. But one big development took place. What is that big development? Russia has annexed Crimea, which is actually a part of Ukraine. Now, as soon as Russia has annexed Crimea, because Russia took advantage of the pro-Russian protesters in Ukraine, and Russia took the military and annexed some part of the Ukraine. There is nothing but Crimea, Republic of Crimea, and this was widely opposed by the countries all over the world. Even UNO also opposed this annexation of Crimea by Russia. Now, as a countermeasure to that, all the other countries of G8 have expelled Russia from G8, and now it became something called as a G7. Now you can see all the maps or the flags of these seven countries which are part of nothing but developed or advanced seven countries of International Monetary Fund, or advanced or industrialist top seven countries in the world. But now all of a sudden something came into the limelight. There is nothing but G11. What exactly is that? We'll try to discuss. Now if you see that this was one article that has come in today's newspaper, there is nothing but 7 to 11. 7 to 11, and India deserves its place on the global stage. India deserves its place on the global stage. But on G11, okay, it must be clear about its aims. Very, very important. It must be clear about its aims. What is that it's all speaking about? Now, all of a sudden, Donald Trump shows a lot of love for India and says that India is missing out in G7 and India is supposed to be in G7. So, there is now we have a plans to expand this G7 to something called as G11 by adding up four more countries. And as you already know that those countries are nothing but RASI countries. What is that? RASI countries. R stands for Russia, A stands for Australia, S stands for South Korea, and I stands for India. So these countries are expected to be part of this G11. Okay. Now, why is that suddenly this thing coming into picture? But as per the words of Mr. Donald Trump, he says that G7 is not having the representation of the world, and it is good to see to that there is a wide representation in this group of countries. So that is the reason he says that I wanted to bring in something called as a G11. But if you see that as we have discussed that initially it was G6 in 1975, it became G7 in 1976 and became G8 in 2000 in 1997, and again it became back to G7 in 2014. Okay, now why is that you wanted to expand it further with a wider representation? Okay, let us say for that matter, let us say that yes, Donald Trump is right. But here a big question arises. What is that question? Out of these countries, one big country is missing, and that big country is nothing but China. Now, he says that this looks more of political on account of Cold War between US and China. As you can see that US is constantly putting allegations on China, saying that China did not act properly on account of COVID-19. Now, USA wanted to counter China, and maybe that this G11 is something coming to picture because of that Cold War between USA and China. Okay, now if Donald Trump says that he wanted to give a wider representation of the world in this group of countries, that wider representation of the world, then if China is missing, means what? China accounts to 16% of the world GDP and it is missing in this. Obviously, that cannot be the reason. So, if that is not the reason, the obvious other reason is nothing but it is more of a political. It is more of what political, because on account of Cold War between USA and China. Now, if it is more of a political account of Cold War between USA and China, okay, what should be the strategy of India? Should India be a pawn in the hands of US to counter China, or should India act in a different way? Definitely, giving a representation among the top countries in the world, there is something good thing that India can welcome. But at the same time, India also should take lot of measures. India should take lot of caution. Okay, in seeing to that, USA is not utilizing India to counter China. So, because China is going to be our neighbor, it will be our neighbor, and any problems with China are going to be more terrifying to India. So, India has to play a very, very key role post COVID-19 political statistics in the world. At the same time, India has to see to that India is joining G11 only keeping the interest of India, not any other country. So if India can do that, India definitely can get into the top of the countries in the world. India can be one of the world powers, and India can play a crucial role in this. Okay. So this is a small topic on G7 to G11 that has appeared in today's newspaper. So do read this column. It's a very, very important column. Then on, we got one more important thing that is being pressing, and many students have been asking me about this: amendments to Electricity Act. As you have seen my video of Atmanirbhar Bharat, I already told you that 90,000 crores of rupees of loan is made available for the distribution companies, but the guarantee should be given by the state governments. And I also made a point saying that distribution companies in the union territories are going to get privatized. Right? So, in account of all these things, this is very, very important, because today we have got an article on this. What is this article? Time to discontinue free power for farmers. It has led to widespread wastage of water and electricity. Now, if we go to this article, okay, this article, he says that Manmohan Singh 15 years back has said that we should not give free power to the farmers. And what is the two reasons that he is saying? Wastage of water and electricity. What is this meaning of this? In this column, he says that in the Electricity Act 2020, that's going to come up in the amendment of 2003 Electricity Act, that's going to come as the Electricity Act 2020. There is something like removal of cross subsidies, and replace that with something called as a direct benefit transfer. You can see something like direct benefit transfer. Okay, he says that we should give something called as a direct benefit transfer, and we should remove these cross subsidies. Now here the question comes up: what exactly are these cross subsidies? We'll discuss all those things. First, let us complete this article, then we'll go about the Electricity Act. In this article, what he says is that when you're giving free power to the farmers, farmers will more get dependent on the borewells, and this would actually erode the groundwater levels. If you see that India is the largest user of groundwater at 251 billion cubic meters, right? And this is much more than that of USA and China. Okay, so this is one important aspect, because the depletion of the groundwater level is going to impact later on. So this is one thing that we wanted to do. And one more important thing is that when you give a free power, usage or a wastage of electricity also would be there. Not only depletion of the groundwater level, but also wastage of electricity. So this guy says that it's a welcome move to replace cross subsidies with a direct benefit transfer. Okay, so these were, and when you come to this argument for free power, there are a lot of things saying that people everywhere all over the country are not getting access to the canal irrigation. As there is no access to the canal irrigation, there are some people who are dependent only on the groundwater level. Now people who are dependent on the canal irrigations are getting free water. Means what? They're not paying any electricity bills. They do not have any electricity to get water. But people who don't have this canal irrigation, they are dependent on the borewells, and these farmers are going to have a additional burden in terms of something called as electricity bills. So it is good to give free power is the other argument that is existing. So just read this article. It's a very, very important article. Now coming to the amendments proposed to Electricity Act 2003. The first and the foremost, you should understand that basically electricity consists of three aspects. One is generation, one is transmission, and one is distribution. If you see this one, this is nothing but the generation of the electricity, and using these things you transmit the electricity, and finally after transmission you do something called as a distribution. Now, what is this Electricity Act, amendments to Electricity Act 2003 is proposing? It's saying that let us go for something called as a privatization of the generation and privatization of the distribution, and transmission will remain with the states. There is nothing but with the government. Okay, this is one proposal tab. There's one important proposal. The other important proposal, if you see that removal of cross subsidies. What exactly is the meaning of cross subsidies? This terminology is very important. The cross subsidies are nothing but when you're distributing the electricity here, when you see that when you're distributing the electricity, the cost of electricity will be different for different people. Okay, for example, to urban areas distribution is easy, but when you wanted to distribute electricity to the rural areas, there should be lines to the remote areas and more infrastructure is required, and the cost of electricity is more. That is the reason what government does is that government will try to subsidize the electricity in the rural areas. Means what, a specific set of consumers are being subsidized. Means this subsidy is not given to everyone, rather than it is given to certain sections of the people. This is called as a cross subsidies. Now what this act says is that if any state government wanted to give cross subsidies, okay, they can do that in the form of direct benefit transfer, but the money that the cost of or the price of the electricity should be same as per the distribution channels. Means what, for example, if I am distributing, let us say like I am distributing an electricity of 100 units to a household. Now I will charge 100 units value to that. Let's say one unit is costing me 700 rupees, and they need to pay something called as a 700 rupees. Okay, I will not reduce any amount here, right? Now for example, in a city, in a urban area, let's say that one more person is consuming some 200 units, and let us say that the cost of distribution to urban area is less for me, so I may charge somewhere around market rate as a 5 rupees. So I charge somewhere around 1000 rupees. Now I give a bill of 1000 rupees. This fellow will pay me 1000 rupees, this fellow will pay me 700 rupees. This fellow is a rural area and this fellow is a urban area. Now in such case, what this act says is that earlier this was something called as a free power for the rural areas, some states. Okay, now it says that should not be the case. They need to pay 700 rupees. If you wanted to give any benefit to the rural areas, you actually do something in the form of something called as a direct benefit transfer. Means what, basically they are privatizing the generation of the electricity, they are privatizing the distribution of the electricity. Means what, electricity generation is handled by the private players, this part is handled by the private players, this part is also handled by the private players. Means what, when a person generates electricity, it is sold okay, to distribution companies as per his cost of production, and this fellow will also distribute the electricity to the consumer based on his profit margin, everything. Means what, these people are getting what they wanted. Okay, now if you wanted to do any benefit to the consumers, maybe rural consumers, the state government will have to put its own money and give in something for called as a direct benefit transfer. Okay, right now if you see on account of COVID-19, the state governments are running out of funds, and bringing up this kind of amendment is going to be one more big burden on the state governments. Okay, earlier this electricity is controlled because electricity is a topic in the concurrent list of the constitution. It's in the concurrent list, and as it is in the concurrent list, the central government is actually trying to make amendment to this, but this is actually taking away the power of the state governments on the electricity departments. So this is one important aspect, sir. And one more important thing is that it is trying to enforce more generation of the renewable energies on the states. Means it is not giving anything to a state government, just asking them to fulfill their responsibilities. And one more important thing is that without taking any license, okay, people can take something called as a sub license or franchisees. Means what, for example, there is an area called within Hyderabad, there is something called as let's say Gachibowli. Now if someone wanted to distribute electricity in Gachibowli, they can take a permission from that distribution company and start a distribution, and they will do as a private person. Like that, sub license is nothing but wherever there is a distribution, complete distribution in the state or the country is not done by a single person. Different people who are expert in that field can actually take a permission and start doing this kind of business. Moreover, these people will do this kind of business because they can also make a profit by being like a mediators between the distribution company and the consumers. And finally, the important one more thing is nothing but cross-border trade of electricity. That is nothing but India can actually do business of electricity between the country India. I mean, the export of electricity
It can also do something called import of electricity with abroad. Sometimes India can also act as a mediator between two countries. Means here there is one country, here there is one more country, here there's like we have got India here. Okay, we have got India here. Now, if this country wanted to purchase electricity or purchase electricity from this country, then the electricity will come here, it can go here. So maybe India would charge something for this. So these are all the important amendments proposed to the Electricity Act. Okay. So these are all with respect to these small things. Okay. So do read these two core articles in today and see you again for new topics in tomorrow's session. Thank you.